Hi class, good day. Today I will be discussing about human parasitic infections. Please wait for a while. I'll be sharing my screen. I hope you have a very nice weekend class because it's really a long weekend. Saturday and Sunday and Monday was a holiday. So you make use of your time to balance rest and study at the same time. Wait for a while class. I'll be sharing my screen. Mm. Okay, so let's start human parasitic infections. So in your SAS module 24 and 25, it's an overview of the human infectious diseases. It says there that human diseases fall to many categories, and one of those categories are the infectious diseases. Infectious diseases can be caused by your parasites, bacteria, and viruses. These are your cellular microbes, and the acellular particle or microbes such as the viruses. For my lecture today, I will focus or we will focus on parasitic infections, specifically to humans, okay? We might not be discussing or going through all the parasites like what we have in the College of MedTech, but as much as possible, we'll be going through the most significant and common parasites that causes diseases to humans. Okay, so let's start class. Human parasitic infections. What is parasitology? Parasitology, it's the branch of biology that study parasites. So when you say parasites, this includes protozoa, helminths, and arthropods. Among this, only protozoa is said to be a microbe. When you say microbe, from the word itself, they are too small to be seen in our naked eye. Helminths and arthropods are way larger, and most of them can be seen already in our naked eye. Parasites belong to, parasites are eukaryotic, meaning they have true nucleus. Parasites are described as organisms that live in or on the other living organisms. So other living organisms that refers to the hosts, okay? At whose expense they gain advantage. So when you say whose expense they gain advantage, this means that parasites may cause a disease but may not cause a disease as well. However, even though they may not cause a disease, they can still give a negative impact to the host because they deprive the host from its nutrients. So parasites that live inside the body's host are called endoparasite. Examples are parasitic protozoa and helminths. Ectoparasites, these are parasites that live outside the body's host. Example, mites, ticks, and lice. Okay. In addition to this slide, before we proceed to the next slide, parasitologists, by the way, these are the people or professionals behind parasitology. So they deal with the parasites, they study the parasites. Okay, going back again, ectoparasite outside the body's host, endoparasite inside the body's host. Parasitism, a symbiotic relationship that is of benefit to one party or symbiont. So meaning it's beneficial to the parasite but not to the other party. Again, parasite may or may not cause a disease, but then the other party is being deprived from its nutrients, even though it may not cause a disease sometime. So it's still not beneficial to the host. So this is a presentation of parasitism. The green figure here is the parasite, and the red fat angry figure is actually the host. So the parasite is very happy that actually takes away the nutrients of the host, while the host is so sad and mad to be deprived from its from its right to be nourished, okay, because its nutrients was already taken away by the parasite. So this is just a presentation of how parasitism happens. So again, this is your parasite or your symbiont that is actually that actually benefits, and this is also and this is the host. Okay, so this is parasitism. What type of parasitism is this? Since the parasite is outside the body, it's on the it's outside the body of the host. It's called ectoparasite. Life cycle of a parasite. A life cycle of a parasite may involve one or more hosts. First, we have definitive host. Definitive host, they harbors the adult or sexual stage of the parasite. Intermediate host harbors the larval or asexual stage of the parasite. I have here in the pneumonia class said capital SAID. So the one colored in violet, letter S and D, stands for sexual stage and definitive host. Colored in peach, A and I stands for asexual stage and intermediate host. So this is for me to easily remember. Again, definitive host is sexual stage, intermediate host asexual stage. Next, accidental hosts. So accidental hosts are not the usual host in the life cycle. They are the unexpected hosts, meaning unexpectedly they become part of the parasite's life cycle. Some of them are dead end hosts. When you say dead end hosts, this is actually the time where parasites already stop um, from continuing its life cycle. This is the time that like parasites already settles. So most of the parasites here were able already to complete its life cycle in the accidental host. So parasite already found it's the one in its accidental host. So that's just an example. Okay. Next is facultative parasite, an organism that can be parasitic but does not have to live as a parasite. Confused? Okay. So, facultative parasite class, they are parasitic. They are parasites still, but they does not have to live as a parasite. What is the definition again of a parasite in the previous slide? They live inside or outside the body of the host. But for facultative parasite, they does not need to live inside or outside the body's host, but they are capable of free living existence. When you say free living of existence, it's actually an independent living, okay? Meaning they can live apart from the host. They can reside in soil and water, for example. So facultative parasite, they can be parasitic, but they does not have to live as a parasite. It's an independent living. Example, parasites of these parasites are your negleri fowleri, that is responsible for primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, this one PAM, and then another is a Entamoeba species. Do not worry, we'll be discussing these parasites in the succeeding slides. So let's focus first um, facultative parasite. Next, obligate parasite. They has no choice. It must be a parasite. So it's a very nice line. Um, they must be a parasite. They have no choice to survive, meaning they really need the host. They are obliged. From the word itself, obligate parasite, it's opposite to the facultative parasite that is free living, that is independent, that is actually capable of living away from the host or not being part of the apart from the host. But obligate parasite, they actually needed the host. They must be a parasite. Okay, most parasites that infect humans are obligate parasites. So most of the parasites that we'll be discussing in the succeeding slides are said to be obligate parasites, meaning they really needed the host to survive. Next, why is it important to know the life cycle of the parasites? This is very important for physicians, epidemiologists, doctors, even you nurses that one day you will be doctors as well. Um, it's very important to actually properly diagnose and treat the patient. In here, physicians will be able to control the parasitic infection through interventions. So that is why it's very important to know the life cycle of the parasites. Worm burden. What is worm burden? Number of helminths present. The number of parasites class also affect the course of the disease. Parasites the number of parasitic helminths present is termed as worm burden. So before we proceed to the next slide, in addition to this, parasites produce toxins, harmful enzymes, and they can also migrate from one side to another, causing destruction of individual cells. So, mode of transmission among parasites could be ingestion, like fecal oral route, penetration, and through vectors or insects that will actually bring the parasite to the host during a blood meal. And lastly, for the clinical specimens, though you will not be working in a laboratory someday, but as a nurse, it is also important since sometimes you'll be the one to collect the sample and you'll be also submitting these samples to the lab. So clinical specimens include feces most of the time, really, and sputum, urine, genitalia, tissue, and skin, and as well as blood. Because for the observation in the diagnostic part of these parasites, they are observed from these specimens, like in feces. It could be the ova, the larva, the rhabditiform larvae, the filariform larvae, the adult worm. So, like for protozoans, it could be the trophozoites, the cysts. So, it's very important that we have to know the stages of the parasite in their life cycle as well. So again, clinical specimens include feces, sputum, urine, genitalia, tissue, skin, and blood. And most likely, clinical specimen used, or actually, clinical specimen that we get for the parasites to be recovered is through feces. First parasite is protozoa. Protozoa belongs to the kingdom Protista. Most are unicellular, but some are multicellular, meaning most are single-celled among the protozoa. Classification of protozoa by their mode of locomotion. This is locomotion class. Please correct. Amoebas, they have pseudopodia. Flagellates, flagella. Ciliates, they have cilia. Example of amoebas, Entamoeba Histolytica. Flagellates, you have the giardia lamblia. For ciliates, you have valentinium coli. You do not have to memorize it right away now. We will be discussing each of these parasites in the succeeding slides. Note that not all protozoa are motile. For sporozoans, they don't have pseudopods, they don't have flagella, they don't have cilia, so they are non-motile type of protozoa. Okay, next slide. Trophozoites, they are the motile and dividing stage of the protozoa. Cysts, oocysts, and spore, they are the dormant stage of the protozoa. Protozoal infections are primarily acquired by ingestion or inhalation of cysts, oocysts, or spores, or injection via the bite of an infected arthropod. Okay? Next, protozoal infections of the skin. First, we have leishmaniasis. It could be cutaneous leishmaniasis, mucocutaneous leishmaniasis, and visceral leishmaniasis. Among these causative agents, only Leishmania tropica and Leishmania donovani are said to be Old World Leishmaniasis. Your Leishmania brasiliensis is a New World Leishmaniasis. Okay? So cutaneous leishmaniasis, let's proceed. This is the picture of cutaneous leishmaniasis, also called as the oriental sore, affecting the hands, the face, is caused by your Leishmania tropica. This one here on your right is a mucocutaneous leishmaniasis, also known as mucosal or espunia, is caused by your um, Leishmania brasiliensis. If you notice, nasal septum was diminished or eaten by the parasite. So this is its clinical picture for your mucosal leishmaniasis. Cause this leishmaniasis are flagellated protozoa from the genus Leishmania. So let's go back. Visceral leishmaniasis. I don't have a picture, class. I wasn't able to post a picture in the slide. But this visceral leishmaniasis is caused by Leishmania donovani. It's also called as Kala Azar. Kala Azar in Hindi term is black fever. Another name for visceral leishmaniasis is another name for black fever is dum fever. So again, it can be called visceral leishmaniasis, Kala-Azar, black fever, dum fever, all caused by Leishmania donovani. Dum fever actually, class, is a place where it is first discovered, where the parasite was first discovered in Dum, Kolkata. That's why it's called Dum fever. Okay? So, leishmaniasis is a zoonotic disease and usually transmitted via the bite of an infected sandfly. So the vector here is sandfly. Zoonotic, class, meaning there is animal to human transmission and human to animal transmission. Okay? So, next, there are two stages of leishmaniasis. Leishmania species. Leishmania genus, there are two species. There are two stages. Sorry, class. There's two stages of Leishmania. It could be a mastigote and promastigote. Letter A is a mastigote, that's non-motile intracellular form. Letter B is promastigote, that's the motile extracellular form. A mastigote is said to be the diagnostic stage. Promastigote as the infective stage. What is infective and diagnostic stage? Diagnostic stage, that's the stage at which the parasite already leaves the host through excretion with the stool, urine, and sample, and can be observed like microscopically. That will actually help in the diagnosis. And infective stage, this is the life cycle at which the parasite is able to initiate an infection. Again, for Leishmania, a mastigote is the diagnostic stage and promastigote is the infective stage. Here is a microscopic exam of a mastigote seen within macrophages. Remember, a mastigote is intracellular, meaning it's inside the cell. It's within the macrophages. It can be also within the neutrophils. Okay, so this is how it looks like under the microscope. This is your mastigote. Next is Montenegro test. What is Montenegro test? This is also called Leishmanian test. This is a test for leishmaniasis. It's an intradermal test on which an antigen derived from promastigotes are infected into the skin. So the antigen here is derived from promastigotes. Usually, the suspension of the antigen are killed Leishmania donovani. Okay, so what is the positive result for Montenegro test? There is positive induration of greater than or equal than 5 millimeters in 72 hours. Again, greater than or equal than greater than or equal to 5 millimeters in 72 hours. So that's Montenegrin Test. Next, protozoal infections of the eye. You have it includes conjunctivitis and keratoconjunctivitis. Conjunctivitis is an inflammation of the conjunctiva, keratitis inflammation of the cornea. So keratoconjunctivitis is an inflammation of both the conjunctiva and the cornea. First, we have Acanthamoeba keratoconjunctivitis. Causative agent is Acanthamoeba species. The amoeba here enter the eye from amoeba-contaminated water, spas, and hot tubs in people who wear soft contact lenses. This can actually lead to loss of vision. By the way, Acanthamoeba species is a free-living parasite. Okay, this is a free-living amoeba. So aside from infection in the eye, this can also disseminate to the central nervous system, causing granulomatous amoebic encephalitis and may lead to death. Okay, so again, CNS and your ulcerative keratitis or keratoconjunctivitis. Next, this is the biology of Acanthamoeba species. You do not have to memorize that. You just have, this is just a good to know for you to have a picture of how Acanthamoeba looks like. This is the microscopic exam of Acanthamoeba from cerebrospinal fluid sample. So these are from different stains actually. Okay. Next, we have toxoplasmosis. The causative agent for toxoplasmosis is Toxoplasma gondii. The definitive host are cats and felines. Intermediate hosts could be man, rodents, birds, sheep, goats, swine, and cattle. It can be transmitted through ingestion of undercooked meat containing cyst form of the parasite. So it can cause disease not just to the eye but as well as to the brain. As you can see here, the parasite can cause disease to the eye as well as to the brain and the muscles and the fetus because it is transplacental, meaning it can be transmitted to the fetus. For pregnant women infected with toxoplasmosis, even though they are asymptomatic, meaning they do not manifest symptoms, they can still transmit this to their fetus. So, what happened? Fetus usually experience mental retardation, blindness, and in worst case, death. Okay, so um, again, toxoplasmosis does not only affect the eye but also the brain, the muscle, and the fetus. It's called for fetus. It's called congenital toxoplasmosis. Next, this is how Toxoplasma gondii looks under the microscope. This is its stages. You do not have to memorize this again. These are only good to know. This is a microscopic exam of tachyzoids. So this stage, it appears to be a curved or comma shape of tachyzoids. Why? Just a trivia class. Toxo here comes from the Greek word toxon, which means arc or bow. So that's why this tachyzoids, relating to this toxoplasma from its Greek word toxon, appears to be curved or comma shape. Okay. Letter E here is an oocyst in the cat species. This is saline mount. This is unstained actually. And this is oocyst. This is not the tachyzoids. This is the tachyzoid stain this time. That's why it's colored. Next, protozoal infections of the gastrointestinal tract. For the gastrointestinal tract, we have amibiasis, giardiasis, cryptosporidiasis, valentiniasis, and cyclosporiasis. Okay, so let's start with the first parasite infecting the gastrointestinal tract. We have here amibiasis. Amibiasis is caused by your Entamoeba, by the causative agent Entamoeba Histolytica. It is acquired through ingestion of fecally contaminated food or water containing cysts. Sometimes it's through flies transporting cysts from feces to food, and very rarely, class, it can be transmitted through sexual contact. Okay? Amibiasis completes its life cycle through a single host. Symptoms for amibiasis, signs and symptoms for patients experiencing amibiasis, fevers, chills, bloody or mucoid diarrhea, and constipation, and colitis. In the lab, when they submit the sample, the stool most of the time appears to be bloody and mucoid. Okay? Next, this is a cross section of the intestinal wall of complications of intestinal amoebiasis. So your Entamoeba histolytica leaves an amiboma. This is a granulomatous pseudo tumor. It's called pseudo tumor because this is always misconfused with tumor, but this is not a tumor. This is an amiboma left by the parasite Entamoeba histolytica. This is a flask-shaped ulcer as well that is actually um, because of the Entamoeba histolytica. Okay, so let's proceed. This is how Entamoeba histolytica looks under the microscope. This is the in iodine stained, and this is not stained. Okay, this is the cyst form, and this one is the trophozoite form, and this is the cyst form again. Okay, so if you notice in the picture, it says there cyst, or I mean it is labeled as cyst of Entamoeba histolytica slash Entamoeba dispar. Entamoeba histolytica and Entamoeba dispar are actually indistinguishable cysts. So that's why even in the lab, it is reported as Entamoeba histolytica slash Entamoeba dispar. But let's focus on Entamoeba histolytica. There are many species of entamoeba causing under the family of amoeba, but then only Entamoeba histolytica is said to be pathogenic. Next, we have here valentiniasis. Valentiniasis, the causative agent is Valentidium coli. This is acquired through ingestion of fecally contaminated food and water containing cysts of Valentidium coli from reservoir, including pigs. So again, if you see pigs, that's Valentidium coli. B as in baboy. So Valentidium coli, valentiniasis, that actually is acquired from food and water containing cysts of B. coli from reservoirs, including pigs. This is how Balantidium coli looks like under the microscope. Your Balantidium coli is the only ciliate that cause infections to humans, and this is also the largest protozoan. Okay, your Balantidium coli is said to be the largest protozoan. This is the biology of the parasite. Again, you do not have to memorize. Just take a look on the structure. This is a ciliated protozoan. So this is the trophozoite and this is the cyst. So this is stained in iodine as well, class. Okay. Next, cryptosporidiosis. Causative agent is Cryptosporidium parvum. This is acquired through ingestion of contaminated food and water. It could be also from animal to person to person, and fecal oral transmission. Reservoir include humans, cattle, and other domestic animals. Next, cyclosporiasis. Causative agent is Cyclospora cayetanensis. Transmission is primarily waterborne, but outbreaks have involved contaminated raspberries, basil, and lettuce. So, your Cyclospora cayetanensis is responsible for watery diarrhea. Wait for a while, class. Okay, next. So this picture here, letter A is your cryptosporidium, letter B is your cyclospora. Your cyclospora protozoan is actually bigger than the cryptosporidium. It's twice the size of your cryptosporidium. Okay? Let's go back with this, the cyclosporiasis that is responsible for watery diarrhea. So, watery diarrhea, imagine class 6 or more, uh, 6 times or 6 or more stools per day. Imagine that. So, common symptoms for cyclosporiasis and cryptosporidiosis. Cryptosporidiosis is actually diarrhea, cramping, abdominal pain, malaise, fever, anorexia, nausea, and vomiting. And but always remember for watery diarrhea, that is already cyclosporiosis. And this one, cyclosporiasis. So this one, cyclospora, is bigger, twice the size of cryptosporidium. So this is stained Cryptosporidium parvum and Cyclospora cayetanensis stained with modified acid fast. So as you can see, bigger ang Cyclospora than the Cryptosporidium. Okay, take a look. So it's very pretty. Next is giardiasis. Giardiasis is caused by Giardia lamblia. It's also called as old man's face or Giardia intestinalis or Giardia duodenalis. Duodenalis because it resides in the duodenum part of the intestine. It's transmitted through fecal oral route. The reservoir could be man, beaver, wild, and domestic animals. It's responsible for clinical manifestations, steatorrhea, and flatus that gives you rotten egg odor. What is steatorrhea? This is actually greasy, frothy stool or fatty stool. Flatus, it's due to the presence of hydrogen sulfide gas that is the reason you appear to be bloated and giving that rotten egg odor. Okay? This is how Giardia lamblia looks like under the microscope. This is its morphology. You do not have to memorize again. Just take a look and at least familiarize how it looks like. These are unstained um, samples of the feces of stool, unstained stool samples. So this is the cyst and this is the trophozoite. These are stained samples. It's very pretty, especially the trophozoite. You can really appreciate the old man's face. There are eyes. You can really see the face. Okay, so this is your Giardia lamblia trophozoite. By the way, in addition to this, Giardia lamblia, they have resulted mostly from drinking treated but unfiltered water. Even though water are treated with chlorine, chlorination cannot is not enough to actually kill giardiasis, especially in cold water. It needs to undergo filtration. So aside from chlorination treatment, there should be filtration process. Next, protozoal infections of the genitourinary tract. We have here is trichomoniasis. So trichomoniasis is caused by your Trichomonas vaginalis. This is a sexually transmitted protozoal disease affecting both men and women. Though it appears to be most of the time it appears asymptomatic to men, it can still cause can lead to urethritis, prostatitis, and infection of seminal vesicle. And most patients having or positive with Trichomonas vaginalis, they're really always associated with other STDs like gonorrhea. So, because Trichomonas vaginalis is an STD, and this is also transmitted through direct contact with vaginal and urethral discharge of infected people. Trichomoniasis is one of the diseases causing trichomoniasis. I'm sorry. Trichomonas vaginalis is one of the causative agents causing vaginitis aside from the Candida albicans. Trichomonas vaginalis doesn't have C stage. It only has a trophozoite. So this is the picture of the trophozoite under the microscope. This is unstained and this one is stained. So aside from the vaginal and urethral discharge, Trichomonas vaginalis can be also observed sometimes in urine, and also in pap smears. When I was working in the lab, I've seen a lot of Trichomonas vaginalis already, and they're really motile and so pretty. I really like it when they move or they exhibit their motility. So again, Trichomonas vaginalis doesn't have cyst stage. Next, protozoal infections of the central nervous system. So this is what I'm talking in the earlier slides. Primary amoebic meningoencephalitis or your PAM. Causative agent is Naegleria fowleri. This is known to be the amoeboflagellate, meaning it appears in two forms, in amoeboid form and your flagellated form. Okay, your Naegleria fowleri is actually a brain-eating amoeba. These amoeba usually enter the nasal passages of a person swimming in amoeba-contaminated water, such as lakes, ponds, thermal springs, hot tubs, and public swimming pools. Reservoir can be water and soil. Again, Naegleria fowleri, like your Acanthamoeba species, is actually a free living parasite as well, meaning it does not really depend to a host. It can live not as a parasite. That's why it can be in water and soil. Okay? Sorry, class. So this is your Naegleria fowleri. This is how it looks like under the microscope. I wasn't able to see Naegleria fowleri yet in my clinical experience. This is also its life cycle, the different stages of Naegleria fowleri. Naegleria fowleri, just remember that it appears in two forms. There is an amoeboid form and flagellated form. That's why it's called amoeboflagellate. Unfortunately, most cases of PAM are diagnosed after the patient's death through observation of amoeba in stained sections of brain tissue. I'm sorry, class, it's already quite noisy at home because I don't have really a right place today to record this lecture. Please bear with me. I'm sorry, and I'll just go up in my next recordings. So next, protozoal infections of the circulatory system. We have here trypanosomiasis, babesiosis, and malaria. Under trypanosomiasis, you have West African sleeping sickness, East African sleeping sickness, and your Chagas disease. Trypanosomiasis, these are your hemoflagellates, meaning these are flagellates in your bloodstream. So let's start with the first one, African trypanosomiasis, responsible for African sleeping sickness. We have here two causative agents, Trypanosoma brucei, subspecies gambiense, and Trypanosoma brucei, subspecies rhodesiense. Gambiense is responsible for the West African sleeping sickness. Rhodesiense is responsible for the East African sleeping sickness. I have here a mnemonic again to share. The Gueri, G, that's for rhodesiense, for West African sleeping sickness, and R, rhodesiense, for East African sleeping sickness. Symptoms include, clinical manifestations include lymphadenitis, anemia, local edema, fever, and rashes. There's also a painful chancre because of the bite of the tsetse fly. So, in the later stages of the disease, it includes body wasting, falling asleep, coma, and death if untreated. So, that's one reason, thus, the name is sleeping sickness. So these are the different stages of your trypanosoma. Like your leishmania, it has stages as well, a mastigote and promastigote. But for leishmania, that's only a mastigote and promastigote. For trypanosoma, you have apet, a mastigote, promastigote, epimastigote, and trypomastigote. Trypomastigote, it's the mature trypanosomes. Okay, you just have to remember that. Trypomastigote is the mature trypanosome. So tsetse fly as the vector, it become infected when they ingest blood with trypanosomes. And infected humans serve as reservoir. Mature trypanosome, trypomastigote are injected when you are bitten by this tsetse fly. These are actually injected in the bloodstream during blood blood meal. So this is the painful chunker I mentioned because of the bite of the tsetse fly. And this is your trypanosoma gambiense or rhodesiense under the microscope. Okay, these are stained actually. It's so pretty. Next, American trypanosomiasis is also called your Chagas disease. Okay, this is caused by Trypanosoma cruzi. And the vector here is your Iridovid bugs, also known as the kissing bugs. What else? The cone nose bugs, the triatomine bugs, and they become infected, this vector, when they ingest blood with trypanosome. Same with the tsetse fly. And pieces of Iridovid bugs are rubbed into the bite wound or eye. So what happened here, class? The Redovid bags actually defecates into a sleeping person's eye, and then the person becomes infected by rubbing the insect's eye, which contain the parasite. Um, the feces with the parasite into the bite wound or eye. As a result, it leads to this one, Romania sign. Romania sign is caused by your T. cruzi infection. It appears to be swelling of the eyelid. Okay. Let's go back. Just another trivia I want to share. It's called Chagas disease in honor of the person who discovered American trypanosomiasis. That's Carlos Chagas. Okay. Cruzy is also a name. I don't know if it's the patient or his partner or guide, but I remember it's also a name. Okay. Anyway, just do with Chagas disease from Carlos Chagas. Okay. It can be also transmitted aside from the vector also through blood transfusion and organ transplantation. Symptoms, clinical manifestation includes lymphadenopathy, splenomegaly or enlargement of the spleen, hepatomegaly or enlargement of the liver. Remember, for trypanosomes, the diagnostic stage include trypomastigote for the blood, amastigote for the trypanosoma cruzi for striated muscles, heart, and gastrointestinal tract. Meaning all trypanosomes, their diagnostic stage is the trypomastigote. That's the mature trypanosome in the blood. But if except for Trypanosoma cruzi, that already disseminates in the striated muscle, meaning it's not just in the blood, it goes outside the blood, it disseminates to the striated muscle, heart, and gastrointestinal tract organs. Their diagnostic stage is a mastigo. Next, babesiosis. Your babesiosis is responsible for the Texas cattle fever. The causative agent is Babesia microti and other babesia species. They are said to be intraerythrocytic sporozoan. This time, this is a sporozoan. So they are non-motile, meaning no cilia, no flagella, and no pseudopods. Intraerythrocytic means they are within the RBCs. This is your red blood cell. This is a stained smear under the microscope. This is your red blood cell, and this is the Babesia microti. Transmission is via tick bite and rarely by blood transfusion. This Babesia microti is often confused with the ring forms of Plasmodium falciparum. Malaria. This is um, a malaria causative agent. But these tiny ring forms are in packets of four. These are actually called Maltese cross. Okay, if you see Maltese cross, that's for Babesia microti or babesiosis. Reservoir rodents. Okay, so let's wait. So next is we have here malaria. There are four species of malaria. We have here Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium ovale, and Plasmodium malariae. So malaria is said to be intraerythrocytic sporozoan. So the same with babesiosis, they are within your RBCs. Plasmodium vivax is the most common. Plasmodium falciparum is said to be the most deadly, while the Plasmodium falciparum is said to be the most deadly. Reservoir includes infected humans and mosquito. Infective stage, sporozoids liberated into the bloodstream via female Anopheles mosquito. So just remember this, the infective stage, the vector is female Anopheles mosquito. Diagnostic stage, demonstration of the parasite through a GEMSA stain in blood smears using, preparing thick and thin smear. Okay, so this is the uh, picture of the Plasmodium Plasmodia species under the microscope. This is your Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium ovale, Plasmodium falciparum that is often confused its rings with that of Babesia microti, and this is your Plasmodium malariae. So this, you don't have to memorize everything in the table class, just familiarize. This is also just another good to know. Cycle of paroxysms, or the um, febrile episodes of this malarial infection for Plasmodium vivax, ovale, and falciparum is 48 hours. For Plasmodium falciparum, it can range to from 36 to 48 hours. Thus, it causes diseases called tertian fever. For Plasmodium vivax, benign tertian fever. Plasmodium ovale, that's tertian fever. Plasmodium falciparum, that's tertian malaria black water fever. And Plasmodium malariae, that's quartan malaria. So, additional information, there are dots present, as you can see in the picture above. For Plasmodium vivax, it's called Schaffner's dots. Plasmodium ovale, James dots. Plasmodium falciparum, Mauder's dots. Plasmodium malariae, that's Simon dots. Again, you do not have to memorize this, just have to familiarize. Drug-resistant strains are common in among Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium falciparum. This is just a mnemonic that we are using ever since when we were in the college. So this is not my mnemonic class. I only borrowed this. You have there Vilma Santos, Ferdinand Marcos, Orange Juice, and Mauro Zaurer. When you say Vilma Santos, that's Vivax, uh, Schaffner's dots, Ferdinand Marcos, that's Falciparum, and Maurer dots, Orange Juice, that's Ovale, James dots, Mario Zaurer, that's Malaria, and Zyman's dots. Why I'm giving this to you, class? These are only good to know. You might not really have to study this. These are only good to know, but there are case studies or situations in the exams that will actually show you clinical pictures, or their characteristics of the parasite under the microscope. It can already give you a clue, and whoever made this mnemonic is really helpful, and you might be able to use this. Okay, so remember Vilma Santos, Ferdinand Marcos, Orange Juice, and Mario Zor. Okay. Next is helminths. So we are already done with protozoans. Let's go with helminths. Helminths are your parasitic worms. They are observed most in feces, their eggs and their larvae in the life cycle. Observation of helminths through eggs and larvae in the life cycle of the parasite. They belong to the kingdom Animalia, and this time they are multicellular and eukaryotic. So still eukaryotic because parasites are eukaryotic. And all helminths affecting humans are said to be endoparasites. What is again endoparasite, class? These are parasites inside the body's host. Okay. Major divisions of helminths. You have their nematodes, that is called your roundworm, flatworms, and then flatworms consist of cestodes or tapeworms and trematodes or flukes. Helminth infection of the eye and skin. First, we have onchocerciasis. Your onchocerciasis is responsible for the river blindness. It's also called your blinding worm. So for its laboratory diagnosis, samples were taken from skin scrapings or tissues from nodules. Okay, this is a nematode that causes severe dermatitis because this parasite resides in the subcutaneous tissue. You have it's a microfilaria in ocular structures that also result in blindness. So aside from skin infection, it also causes eye infection. So you have severe dermatitis and blindness. This is the leading cause of blindness in Africa class. Vectors include here the black flies or buffalo gnats. Black flies from the genus Simulium, Simulium. It's actually in the picture. Okay. You do not have to memorize this life cycle again. It's just a good to know. It's up to you. And also additional information. Okay. But you don't have to memorize. Okay. Just know the causative agent, as long as you know the infective stage, the diagnostic stage, the definitive stage, the mode of transmission. It will already give you a clue about this parasite. Next, helminth infection of the circulatory system, we have filariasis and schistosomiasis. For filariasis, that's Wuchereria bancrofti and Brogia malayi. Schistosomiasis, Schistosoma japonicum, Schistosoma mansoni, and Schistosoma hematobium. Schistosoma mansoni in the mesenteric or intestine, Schistosoma hematobium in the bladder part. But we'll focus on Schistosoma japonicum only in the next slide. Okay? Let's have first filariasis. Filariasis caused by Wuchereria bancrofti or Brugia malayi. These are the life cycle of these parasites. I'm sorry, class, Brugia malayi's life cycle isn't really clear, but this can be searched in Google. More once you search it in Google, more CDC pictures will show. Okay. These are microfilaria nematode that are responsible for elephantiasis. What is elephantiasis? This is a permanent blockage of the lymphatic system, either in lower or upper extremities. But for Brugia malayi, it's restricted to lower extremities. The vectors include what for Wuchereria bancrofti, you have Culex and Anopheles mosquito. For Brogia malayi, you have Mansonia mosquito. So this is a clinical picture of elephantiasis in its lower extremities. This one, by the way, this is hydrocele, Drocele. Hydrocele is the most common manifestation. This is an accumulation of fluid in the scrotum. That's why it appears to be swelling. So again, this is hydrocele, Hydrocele, and this is elephantiasis. Your filariasis can be demonstrated in the lab through thick and thin smear under GEMSA stain. Definitive host is man, intermediate host is through mosquito. Again, the mosquitoes are Culex Anopheles mosquito for Wuchereria bancrofti and Mansonia mosquito for Brugia malayi. Okay, and it can be transmitted through insect bite through these vectors, and it's deposited in the skin. Next, we'll have schistosomiasis. For schistosomiasis, causative agent, we will only discuss about Schistosoma japonicum. This is a blood fluke, meaning this is a trematode, and the bloodstream. This is the only fluke that is said to be not hermaphroditic. When you say hermaphroditic, both female and male reproductive organ is combined, or they have both female and male reproductive organ. But for Schistosoma japonicum, separate yung female at male adult worms. As you can see, this is the male and this is the female. The female worm here lies or copulate during copulation lies in the gynecophoral canal of the male. So I haven't seen schistosoma in my entire clinical experience, but we have seen it in our laboratory activities when we were in college. It's really very pretty. The intermediate host here is Oncomelania snail, and the definitive host is man. Your schistosomiasis is clinical manifestations include hepatomegaly and splenomegaly, that's enlargement of spleen and liver. Also, central nervous system invasion. It is also said to be carcinogenic, cause leading to that might leads to colorectal and liver carcinoma. It's said to be oncogenic rather. So children are most commonly affected here, usually from 5 to 10 years old, but it can also affect infect adults. It is also responsible for Katayama fever. That's 40 days after infection. So again, schistosomiasis, the Schistosoma japonicum is also responsible for Katayama fever. Next, this is a clinical picture of a patient suffering from schistosomiasis, progressive chronic inflammatory disease involving the liver, the small intestine, large intestine, and the bladder. So for intestine, primarily it's the schistosoma mansoni, bladder, schistosoma hematobium. These are the uh, eggs of schistosoma under the microscope. This is actually stained. Schistosoma mansoni and japonicum are the same. They have this lateral spine. It's just for japonicum, it's very small or reduced. For mansoni, it's more pointed. For schistosoma hematobium, it's a terminal spine. You do not have to, this is only, you have to familiarize only, at least you have an idea how or this schistosoma eggs looks like under the microscope, especially now that we do not have actual laboratory demonstration. Next, helminth infection of the lungs. You have paragonimiasis. The causative agent is Paragonimus westermani, also called as the Oriental lung flu. So it's in the lung. It's acquired through ingestion of crustaceans like crabs and crawfish that are infected, okay, of Paragonimus westermani. Symptoms include chronic cough and abundant mucus in heavy infections. I apologize, the life cycle picture isn't clear again, but you can search it in Google. The intermediate host again is snail. All the flukes, yung intermediate host is actually the snail, okay? Next, helminth infection of the muscles and subcutaneous tissue. First, we have trichinelliosis. The causative agent is Trichinella spiralis. It's a nematode, also called as trichina worm or garbage worm. It's acquired through ingestion of encysted larvae in undercooked pork. So imagine you really have to cook the pork properly, or else you'll be able to acquire this parasite. So come as clinical manifestation, destruction of muscle, and may have myocardial involvement. Okay. Next, we have drunkenculiasis. Sorry. The causative agent is Drunkenculius medinensis. Ha, ang hirap. This is also called nematode. Its another name is guinea worm, responsible for that guinea worm disease. It can be acquired by drinking of fresh water from stagnant pools containing minute freshwater crustaceans like cyclops infected with the larvae. Clinical manifestation includes blister formation and pyogenic arthritis. This formation is actually a painful papule class from which the worm emerges. This usually happens in the lower leg, in the ankle, and foot, just like in the picture. So I'll just share. You do not have to also memorize this. Just another good to know that I was able to read and I want to share. This actually blister formation, the worm here can be removed through this small stick, okay? But the range is 15 to 20 days. Imagine that the worm is removed through the small stick, slowly but surely. They have to do it day by day, gently, because if they do it in pressure with too much pressure, there could be bacterial infection or allergic reaction. So this one is a picture of blister formation. So the worm here can be removed using this small stick. Okay, just additional information that I'm also amazed actually. Next, helminth infection of the gastrointestinal tract. We have this is ascariasis caused by Ascaris lumbricoides. So I know you know this. You already draw this in your previous lab activities. So it has different stages as well. So this is the ova of the Ascaris lumbricoides under the microscope. It's also called the large intestinal roundworm. Worm ball is the blockage in the intestines. Yes, this is possible. The one in the picture that these parasites can live in your body. Yes, it looks like spaghetti. It can also cause Ascaris pneumonitis because it can migrate to in the lungs. Okay, so meaning it does not only infect the gastrointestinal tract but also in the lungs. Okay, Ascaris pneumonitis due to larval migration in lungs. Next, hookworm infection. Your hookworm infection, we have two causative agents, Ancylostoma duodenale and Necator americanus. Ancylostoma duodenale is a nematode, also called Old World hookworm, and Necator americanus is a nematode, also called as New World hookworm. I always remember this when I was in college. Necator stands for letter N, so that's new, and the other one is already the old. Okay, so Ancylostoma duodenale, that's old world hookworm. Necator americanus, that's new world hookworm. Clinical manifestations include pneumonitis, allergic reactions to ground itch, and anemia. Yes, hookworm infection can lead to anemia. Each adult worm consumes 0.2 ml of blood per day. Imagine that, okay? So it can lead to anemia. Next, enterobiasis. I don't have picture of the ova, but you can search it in Google. I apologize. I forgot to post pictures. But enterobiasis is very popular. I know you know this. You also draw this in your lab worksheet. This is the most common helminth parasite in humans due to poor hygienic or poor sanitation. Okay, causative agent is Enterobius vermicularis. This is also a nematode, and this is also called your pinworm. Next, trichoriasis. The causative agent is Trichoris trichiura. This is also a nematode and called as whipworm. And this is responsible for prolapse rectum or rectal prolapse that may occur in heavy infections. Actually, I wanted to post picture of rectal prolapse, but you might find it disgusting. But it's already for you to search in Google for you to see also the clinical picture, how rectal prolapse look like. It's really disgusting. Next, we'll proceed with tapeworm infection. We have Taenia solium and Taenia saginata. Your Taenia solium is called as pork tapeworm because this can be acquired through ingestion of undercooked pork. Okay? Taenia saginata, beef tapeworm, because this can be acquired through ingestion of undercooked beef containing the larval stage. For both of these are responsible for intestinal taeniasis. This egg of the taenia is indistinguishable for both taenia solium and saginata. So we cannot really distinguish taenia solium and saginata. Both are indistinguishable. So for intestinal taeniasis, man is the definitive host. Intermediate host, you have pig for T. solium, cattle for T. saginata. But in cases of cysticercosis, yes, class, Taenia solium can also disseminate into the central nervous system. I mean, migrate into the central nervous system. It's this time it's already cysticercosis. This is the larva of T. solium reside and form cystic lesions in the brain, not just in the brain, also in the muscle and eyes. But this time, in cysticercosis, man serves as both the intermediate and definitive host. Okay? For intestinal taeniasis, the intermediate host is different. For T. solium, it's pig. But if for cysticercosis, man serves as both the intermediate and definitive host. Helminth infection of the central nervous system, that includes Taenia solium. We also have here hydatid cyst disease. Causative agent is Echinococcus granulosus, Echinococcus granulosus is the causative agent. It's also called as hydatid tapeworm or dog tapeworm. This can be acquired through ingestion of food contaminated with dog's feces containing the eggs. Definitive host includes dogs and other canine animals. Intermediate host, sheep, and other herbivores. Man here acts as accidental intermediate host. So this is really the accidental host that we're talking earlier. Another species of Echinococcus is Echinococcus multilocularis. Oh, pinahirapan. Multilocularis. This which is responsible for alveolar hydatid disease. This time alveolar, so that's in the lungs. Okay. This is a tabulation of the summary of the helminth infections of humans. This isn't clear class, but this is only in Burton's. That's page 414. You can actually look at page 414. This is the summary. This is the anatomic location, the helminth disease, and the helminth that caused the disease or the causative agent. Okay. Just additional good to know. Remember me, these are the scientific names and their common names. So sometimes it's very nice, it's very good to know the common names for you to be able to understand their location, the body, their distribution, as well as their disease that they cause. So this is important also that you'll be able to know their common name. Okay. Remember this also, heart-lung migration. These are the parasites that are capable of migration in the heart and lungs. ASH, that's Ascaris, Strongyloides, and hookworm. Auto-infection, remember ESH, that's Enterobius, Strongyloides, and Hymenolipes, Nana. Again, heart-lung migration, ASH, Ascaris, Strongyloides, hookworm. Auto-infection, that's ESH, Enterobius, Strongyloides, and Hymenolipes, Nana. When you say auto-infection class, the parasite is already in the body, but it causes another infection. There is reinfection, another infection. Okay? So these are capable of auto-infection. Again, Enterobius, Strongyloides, and Hymenolipes, Nana. Brain check. Which of the following can cause a fatal meningoencephalitis? The correct answer is letter C, Naegleria fowleri. Remember, Naegleria fowleri is responsible for primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. Number 2, if humans ingest the egg of Taenia solium, they may develop letter D, cysticercosis. Okay, I only have 2 questions. Thank you, class, for listening to my lecture. I hope you were able to learn with your Burton's Microbiology for Health Sciences, your SAS modules, and my lecture and Sir Carl's lecture. You'll be able to learn, and the previous lectures as well. You'll be able to learn a lot. God bless you and study smart. If you have questions, do not hesitate to message me and my email and Rod Learning account. But make sure lang po nga office hours. Thank you, class. God bless you again and study smart. Have a good day.